Hey everyone, welcome back to Oversea Ghost. I'm Blackmond. Today's story comes from Mexico City, and it's a wild ride from skeptic to believer. A guy named Michael thought ghosts were nonsense until his empty house, his dogs, and eventually his own sanity proved him wrong. Stick around for this one. If you enjoy it, hit like, share with a friend, and subscribe for more true tales from around the world. My name is Michael, and I need to tell you what happened to me. I'm 39 years old, a computer engineer living in Mexico City, and until 3 years ago, I would have laughed at stories like the one I'm about to share. I'm an atheist, a skeptic, someone who believes in what can be measured, coded, proven. The paranormal was entertainment for me, something to scoff at during late-night conversations with colleagues. I don't scoff anymore. It began in 2012. After the end of a long relationship, I found myself starting over in a house that had once been my home during high school. 3 years of adolescence lived within those walls before life took me elsewhere. The property belongs to my father, who now resides in Morelos, and it came to me as a kind of living inheritance. A fresh start, I told myself. But fresh starts require furniture, and I had almost none. The house has always been cold. I remembered that from my teenage years. But empty, truly empty, with bare floors and hollow rooms, it became something else entirely. The closest thing to a freezer, except freezers don't seem to watch you. Freezers don't wait. I began with the essentials, a bed first. Then, because I've always been someone who finds solace in the company of animals, particularly small dogs, I did something that would change everything. Within weeks of settling in, I adopted a Doberman puppy, barely 6 weeks old. From the moment she entered my life, I felt a connection I couldn't explain. Despite being torn from her mother and litter, she never cried. Not the first night, not ever. She simply looked at me with those dark eyes, and the house felt different, warmer, alive. I had no idea I was experiencing the calm before the storm. My routine crystallized quickly. Early mornings, office by 8 or 9 depending on deadlines, sometimes returning well past midnight. Every arrival home was met with her, my little guardian, my reason to hurry back through darkened streets. For months, this was my life. And for months, things happened that I dismissed because I had to dismiss them, because the alternative was impossible. They occurred at dusk, always at dusk, or during the night, or in the early morning hours when the world seems thinnest. Even at the office, surrounded by colleagues, the strangeness found me. We joked about it at first. My phone would ring with private displayed where a number should be, or impossibly long strings of digits with no logical pattern. I would answer, put it on speakers so my team could hear, and we'd wait. Static. Breathing. Nothing else. We laughed, called it a prank, pretended someone had engaged mute mode on the other end. But we stopped laughing when the chairs began to move. Office chairs, reclining chairs with wheels, the kind that require intention to shift. They would slide across the floor as if pushed, spin slowly as if someone were sitting there, twirling absent-mindedly. We sought explanations, uneven floors, air currents, faulty mechanics, and found none that satisfied. The bewilderment remained, though we buried it beneath professional dismissal. There was always work to do. Then came the sounds of entry. To reach my private office, one had to pass through a wooden door with a turning knob, then slide open an aluminum and glass door that was neither silent nor light. It required force. We heard the wooden door open. Seconds later, the scrape of the sliding door. We would look up, ready to greet whoever arrived, and find the space unchanged, empty, the door unmoved. Objects began disappearing from outside my office, items left on desks, on counters, gone. We would search meticulously, turning the space upside down, and find nothing. Days later, they would reappear without ceremony, beneath furniture, inside boxes we hadn't opened, places completely unrelated to where they'd been lost. We stopped mentioning it. At home, I attributed the noises to acoustics. An empty house creates echoes. Sounds travel strangely from the street, from neighboring houses pressed close on either side. I told myself this, even as the phenomena intensified. The more I ignored them, the more they demanded attention. The disappearances began at home, too. Just me and the puppy. No one else could possibly be responsible. Yet things vanished. My laptop from the table that served as both desk and dining surface, phone chargers, articles of clothing. Nothing she could have taken as a toy. Nothing a dog her size could have moved. I was already sensing that these were not very pleasant things, as I euphemistically thought of them. They were something else, something not easy to explain objectively, as my engineering mind still insisted on framing it. The turning point came when her collar disappeared. A metal training collar, a martingale design. Impossible for a dog to remove herself. I know what you're thinking. It slipped off. It was too large. I assure you, it fit properly. I needed both hands to fasten and unfasten it. Yet it was gone. From that day, my little Doberman changed. The calm, playful companion who had made the house feel welcoming became something else. Alert, watchful. She would react aggressively, defensively to sounds and movements I couldn't perceive. She would bark with a fury that terrified me, staring at empty corners, following invisible presences with her eyes. And I would stand there, seeing nothing, hearing nothing, wondering what she saw that I couldn't. A year passed this way, a year of denial, of my scientific and atheist conception of life refusing to accommodate what was happening. But denial has a cost. The atmosphere at home grew heavier, more oppressive with each passing week. I have friends who describe themselves as sensitive, gifted, they say, at perceiving energies and presences beyond ordinary perception. They began refusing to enter my house. Several times literally refusing, sometimes unable even to hold their gaze toward its interior. They described it as heavy, cold, a place that provoked deep, inexplicable sadness and fear. I told myself they were dramatic, that they were projecting, that the house was simply old and poorly insulated. Around this time, a second dog entered my life, a German Shepherd puppy, severely malnourished and ill. Rescued from an environment of total mistreatment and abuse. I expected tension between them. Instead, they understood each other immediately. Healthy coexistence, harmony even. The house should have felt warmer with two beating hearts instead of one. It didn't. The noises grew clearer, louder, more explicit. Doors opening and closing, not just the sounds of movement, but the violent slam of wood against frame, objects falling on the ground floor, sometimes breaking, utensils dropping onto the metal sink, ringing out like bells. I would descend the stairs to find everything in apparent order, nothing disturbed, nothing out of place. The disappearances continued, but now they mocked me. The collar reappeared in the washing machine drum. Later, other lost items turned up in the refrigerator, in pantry drawers built into the wall reaching to the ceiling, in the closet of the second bedroom, the unused room, the empty room, the room where no one slept. Then they started happening to me directly. falls down the stairs that I couldn't quite explain, conflicts with strangers during my commute, sudden and inexplicable hostility, cuts, accidents, minor injuries that accumulated. My laptop began turning itself on in the early morning hours, not just powering up, but opening the browser, navigating to YouTube, playing videos at volumes designed to jolt me from sleep. And always, beneath these intrusions, the footsteps. Someone ascending the stairs. No one ever appeared at the top. My dogs saw what I couldn't. They would bark toward the stairs, looking down, aggressive and terrified, while I stared at empty space and felt my rationality fraying. I was dating a nurse from the IMSS, the Mexican Social Security Institute, when the boundary between my haunted house and the outside world finally dissolved. We decided to visit her parents in Pachuca, in the state of Hidalgo. The drive should have been simple. It wasn't. Dusk was falling, that interval where grays predominate when day surrenders to night without clear victory. I was driving on the highway when I saw it. A human figure, fully formed yet somehow composed of shadow, crouched on the retaining wall. It leaped. I swerved, felt the impact of something landing on the hood. I was in the fast lane. I moved to the slow lane, but it clung to us, landed on the roof. I didn't speak. I glanced at my girlfriend and saw her looking away, deliberately, as if avoiding criticism of my driving or some other embarrassment. We continued in silence. Music played. We talked of other things. Her parents' house in Pachuca welcomed us with beer and dinner and continued music. Then she took my hands. "You're not crazy," she said. I saw it too. I saw how it jumped from the wall and landed on the car. She told me not to show weakness, but to seek help. Something very bad was happening, she said. Something that had followed us from Mexico City. That night, I dreamed of the highway figure. But in the dream, it grabbed me, and I couldn't move. I saw myself struggling against hands of impossible strength. I saw it enter my house, attempt to attack my pets, watch us from outside the bedroom door. And as I fought, it showed me things, visions of what it had done, what it intended to do. Pure fear, the purest fear I have ever known. She woke me, or rather, I believe she woke me. The transition between dream and waking remains unclear in my memory. Her hands were already on my wrists, trying to free me from whatever held them immobile. I remember saying, "Help me, I can't move, I'm very cold." When I finally opened my eyes, she was on top of me. She explained that she had woken from a deep anguish, feeling the highway figure standing beside the bed, on my side. At that moment, I had begun moving as if trapped in nightmare, legs kicking, hands twitching, mouth opening without sound emerging. She turned on the light, positioned herself fully over my body, and did what her grandmother and mother had taught her. She prayed. She shouted insults at the thing, whatever it was, commanding it to leave. It was 2:30 in the morning. We tried to sleep again. Exhaustion took me quickly, but immediately the thing subdued me again. The visions returned, more aggressive this time. Blood, crying, wailing, and for an instant, an eternal instant, I felt my own death, a crashing fall, something clinging to me as we descended into void, a voice telling me I could not be at peace, that I was going to die. I woke again to find her on top of me, praying, sweating, cursing the presence with desperate intensity. The terror on her face, I will never forget her expression, her gaze. She had seen it return, standing by my side 1 or 2 minutes before the second attack began. She described how it moved my hands, attempting to turn my palms upward, to break whatever held them. She marveled at how my wrists and ankles remained rigid despite my evident physical struggle, despite there being apparently no one restraining me. We did not sleep again. In the morning, we returned to Mexico City. The drive was calm. When I left her at her house, her fear was still visible, still palpable. By then, I was sleeping very little. I tried to stay alert because every night followed the same pattern. Around 11 or 11:30, the noises would begin. The footsteps, the sensation of cold wind, of being watched. Everything intensified around 1:30. Every night, the same progression. During this period, I adopted a third dog, a Belgian Shepherd puppy, barely 6 weeks old. 3 guardians now, 3 reasons for joy, yet the atmosphere remained heavy, macabre. I have never been depressive, but I felt constant sadness, a lack of will to live, deep disappointment and anguish that bordered on paranoia. The critical night arrived. Of all the nights, and there were so many, this was the worst. The noises were incessant, moving up and down the stairs. Lights turned on and off without switch or command. My dogs barked at nothing, watched nothing, approached nothing with teeth bared and hackles raised. I felt watched everywhere, even behind closed doors, even within my own bedroom. I felt that thing was there, with me, waiting. The next morning, my neighbor asked if someone had moved in with me. I said no, asked why. He had looked through his window into my second bedroom the previous night. The light was on. A person was visible through the curtains. I tried to hide my fear. I told him it must have been me looking for something, but I knew I had not been in that room. That same morning, I found a handprint on the dresser mirror inside my bedroom, the kind left when someone leans against glass. But the hand was not mine. Placing my own palm beside it without touching the print, I saw it was nearly twice my size. My legs buckled. Later, I took my older dogs for a walk, the Doberman and the German Shepherd, both old enough for outings. I left the new Belgian Shepherd puppy at home. Despite never having been separated from me, the Doberman suddenly transformed. She bolted from the median strip, crossing the highway ring road. A car struck her. The screech of tires, the thud, the sight of her running on adrenaline, pain not yet fully registering. I reached her where she finally stopped and found the German Shepherd waiting, standing guard over her injured sister, barking furiously, refusing to let anyone approach. I made calls, arranged for the veterinarian to meet us. The German Shepherd remained agitated, aggressive, protective. The vet arrived, hospitalized the Doberman. Fortunately, her injuries were not severe. Rest and painkillers for several days. My mother, witnessing this accumulation of disasters, attributed everything to my atheism. I was being tested, she said. I told her this went far beyond skeptical ideas, that something else was at work. She agreed to spend one night in the house. She asked me to accompany her through every room while she prayed, carrying a lit Easter candle and her prayer book, instructing me to hold the crucifix. We started upstairs, both bedrooms, the hallway. As we descended the stairs, something grabbed my ankle and pulled. The force sought to make me fall into my mother, to send us both tumbling down several steps. I don't know how I did it, but I threw myself sideways, off the stairs where no protective railing existed, falling to the floor from reduced height rather than risking her safety. That was the final straw. My mother was now fully convinced that something very, very wrong inhabited that house, that the integrity and lives of my pets and myself were genuinely at risk. My sisters and my mother, now deceased, conferred with me and insisted I could not continue this way. They organized among themselves, and the following weekend, they brought a woman intended to free the house and me from whatever had taken hold. She arrived without speaking. She observed, opened her hands as if feeling the air, closed her eyes at intervals. She sat and stared intently at the wall dividing living room and dining room, where shelves stood. My older sister introduced me. "This is my brother. This is the house where many things have happened to him." The woman replied without hesitation, "Yes, I already saw it. There it hides, but wherever you go, it follows you. Everything that happens to you is not only here, also on the street or at your work. Wherever you go, you carry it behind you." I was astonished. I had not told my family many of these details: the office phenomena, the highway incident, the specific patterns of harassment, yet she knew. She asked to be left alone with me. We sat at the table where she placed a glass of water and lit a candle. What she revealed explained everything and threatened worse. "This was not simple," she said. "If something wasn't done, I would end up dead. They want to see you dead. They will not rest until they kill you." She began speaking details of my life that she could not have known through ordinary means: my work, personal aspects, how each of my 3 dogs had come to me and why. She described the office incidents with precision. She knew about the day my dog was struck by the car and told me that I was meant to die that day, but the dogs were my angels, sent with a mission, willing to give their lives for me. She knew about the trip to Pachuca. She knew that those who had commissioned the trabajos, spell work, against me could see everything I did, everything that happened to me. This was not simple sorcery. She described a ritual involving cemetery earth, bone from a disinterred corpse, fresh blood from animal sacrifice, performed through a powerful and dark sorceress tradition called Palo Monte, or something similar. The exact term escapes me. I was confused and overwhelmed by revelation. I expected questions, the key inquiries that would allow her to draw conclusions and present them as insight. She asked nothing. She simply spoke, explained, detailed everything they had done, what they had requested, what awaited me if it continued. She gave me the full names of 2 people responsible, physical descriptions. One was a colleague who had always wanted my position. The other was the partner of the person I had separated from when I began living in that house. She could not have known these names. She could not have known their appearances, yet she described them perfectly. After our conversation, she prepared liquids, lit candles, walked through the house meticulously while praying. She took sips and sprayed them from her mouth. At certain locations, the candle flame danced wildly, and the atmosphere grew dense, heavy, difficult to breathe. She cleaned my mirrors, closing portals she said had been opened within them. She cleansed my dogs and instructed my family never to separate them from me. They were protectors with a mission. Finally, she performed a cleansing ritual on me. I don't know how it proceeded. She prevented me from closing my eyes, yet I seemed to sleep. I remember nothing of its duration or specific actions. My sisters later described my body leaning in impossible ways, bending without falling, angles that defied balance. They said the lady's fire seemed to set my clothes alight at moments, yet I did not burn, nor did my clothing. That afternoon, that evening was intense. I ended exhausted and finally slept, truly slept, as I had not been able to in nearly 3 years. From that day, everything returned to normal. Objects stopped moving, falling, disappearing. My pets relaxed into their natural playfulness. The friends who had refused to enter now came inside, affirming that the house finally felt light, illuminated, at peace. The final element of the cleansing, blessed palm crosses from Easter, placed on every door, on nearly every wall. Over time and through various relocations, some have broken, worn down, destroyed. I don't know what will happen when they finally deteriorate completely. The lady gave no instructions for this eventuality. She simply left, telling me to stay calm, to care for my dogs, that everything would remain normal. I don't know how to define what happened to me. I don't have language for it that satisfies my engineering training or my former atheism. But this is what I endured for almost 3 years in that house, where now a completely different energy breathes and moves. I am Michael. I am 39 years old. I am from Mexico City, and I no longer scoff at stories like mine.